Okay, wonderful. Welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and this is September 8th, Friday. And right now I'm doing the level 1 recording, just ducking off camera to make sure, yes, everything is working. If you see me look over there, it's because I'm looking at the auxiliary hard drive that I've got going on. Okay, so what I'm going to do today in level 1 is address some of these ideas of people have been engaging in this fad of what they're calling chakra removal. And I'm going to go through my understanding of like why that's not possible or not desirable, or how I feel that would have a negative impact on the body. And let me also tell you about the origins of where these 7 colors of the rainbow come from. Like in the recorded lessons of level 1, lesson 7 is called the Rainbow Journey. And that's what this is basically going to be all about. And I feel that when I fully explain this, that it will become very evident what these layers of light and information and consciousness are, and why they are essential to be parts of our body. So the first thing I used in the introduction, I made a little analogy that if I were, I have a human body. If my human body got a cold or the flu and I started to feel like my nose is sneezing a lot, like my nose is full of stuff and I can't breathe properly. So clearly the proper response would be to cut off my nose, and that would solve all of my problems. But clearly we don't do that. We recognize that there's not a problem with the nose, there's not a problem with your anatomy, there's a problem that you have pathogens, you have infections, you have beings riding along, they're not supposed to be in there with you, and that the way that you get healthy is by getting rid of the beings that don't belong in there. So that is what I feel is the essential and right thing to do with the chakras. So first of all, chakra just means nothing more than spinning wheel of energy, and it comes from Sanskrit. And antediluvian, this is the pre-flood sophisticated worldwide culture that was on Earth. After the flood, the information that was part of the antediluvian culture was broken up and fragmented, and it was held in trust by all of these different cultures. So some of it went to the ancient Egyptians, some of it went to the Mayans, some of it went to the Hindu people and the people of the Far East in India. So they held the idea of, the energy centers of the body. They called it chakras. That's all that chakra means, spinning wheel of energy. Like if you could imagine a chariot with the spinning wheels of a chariot. Now I'm going to squint and scroll, and I'm going to pull up some pictures that I've got that I did these drawings in order to show what these energy centers are and what they're shaped like. So give me a minute while I select all of my everythings that I want to show you here. Oh, and I got lots of good stuff. These are lots of images to show you. Okay, I know I'm making scrolly faces. All right, so let me start off with, there we go. This is a very basic drawing that shows all of these energy centers, and I'm just switching to a color that you can see, and their convergence point. So this is a very accurate drawing because you can see this outer, where I'm highlighting in black, that is the largest aspect of your non-physical anatomy, and it is red, and it corresponds with the physical world. So this is like saying you have a big giant cloud that surrounds your physical body, and this cloud of energy is the energy of physicality. And that means, so energy has come, I should start with a picture of a prism. You know something? Let me go back to starting from the beginning instead of starting in the middle here. We want to go to this picture right here. This is not my original artwork. This is just a generic picture of a prism. So what we have is, just choosing a color that you can see properly. So this is white light, and that is light that comes from our sun, from our star. And the sun and the stars, these are not just nuclear furnaces, that balls of hot gases that emit a lot of light and make us warm and make it possible for plants to grow. These are portals of energy. So the sun, is our nearest star, is a portal of energy through which light and timelines and consciousness are emitted. And that's what this is. This is a bundle of probabilities and possibilities and consciousness that we call light from the star. And this light has the privilege of going at, the speed of light, according to what Einstein is telling us. And when it reaches a solid object like this glass plane, it slows down a little bit. And that is what creates the phenomenon of the light being split up or refracted into all of this, what I'm highlighting, what I just boxed in there, those are the colors of the rainbow. Okay. So this is, I'm trying to tell you, first of all, in terms of where my information comes from, all of my information comes from direct perception. I didn't get my information from reading a book or even reading an ancient text or getting this from anybody else that was an earthly teacher. It's like saying I activated my inner eye, my inner vision, and I looked at the landscape and I looked at my own anatomy and I saw what was there. So what I'm sharing with you, this is empirical. I feel very comfortable sharing this information with you. It's like sharing information like 1 + 1 = 2. This is empirical. I know that this is truthful. So I know that the light that comes from our star is made up of a color recipe, just in the same way that you have a cake. A cake is made up of so much flour and so much sugar and so many eggs and then a dash of vanilla extract. And that is what we've got with all of these light waves, that our physical and non-physical body is made up of a color recipe. And you can see I chose this because the light waves are pretty accurate. The red ones are much longer than the violet ones that are much smaller and tinier. And this also is part of lesson 2 of the level 1 stuff, the idea of wavelength and frequency. And this is all describing the phenomenon of physical light that we can perceive with our physical eyeballs. But when I'm going to show you the next series of pictures that I was, skipping ahead a little bit too fast before the energy centers of your body, we're talking about non-physical light. So the light that you perceive with your inner eye or your non-physical eye. But it has very similar qualities and similar arrangements to the physical light that comes from the star that we can see with our physical eyes. So all of this journey through the prism splits up this unity consciousness into these elements or layers of consciousness that we can perceive as the 7 different colors. So this is why I work so much with the rainbow. It's not just because rainbows are cool or uplifting or that they're pretty or anything like that. It's because literally there is a connection between our star and the body that we live in, and that we are literal emanations from the sun and from this whole stellar network. All of the stars are connected, and I'll talk about that in terms of the singularity. And our consciousness and our body and our flight through time is connected to the sun, because the idea is that if this is the sun over here, a blue sun, right? And the sun is emanating these light waves that then come down into you. Let's say this is you. You are a prism, and you are refracting this primary ray of stellar consciousness into the individuated characteristics that we know as experiencing life as a human. So now I'll go to one of those anatomical pictures, and we'll go through what is the experience of being embodied in an anthropomorphic form. How are we connected to the sun? How are we connected to a star? How does this happen for us? So I'll choose this. This is a simple line drawing. So it's simplified. I don't have all of the colors in there. And I'll just choose a neutral color and highlight what we've got over here. So this is one energy center here. This is another one here, another one here, another one here, another one here. And this place over here, that's actually where 2 of them intersect. Don't worry, I'll get to all the questions during the Q&A, but right now I'm in the groove. And there's another one down here where 2 of them intersect. So the ones that intersect, it is like a 90-degree angle. Here I'm drawing a 90-degree angle, and it has a gyro-stabilizing effect. So what I'm trying to say is that 2 of your chakras or energy centers are oriented with their vortices like this, like that's the physical one. And then you've also got the crown chakra down there, basically the 2 bookends. And then the rest of them are oriented with their vortices like this, the way that buttons go up and down the surface of your button-down shirt. All right. So they have complementary orientations, and that allows for a gyro-stabilizing effect. So if you're a helicopter and you're flying, let's draw a very rudimentary helicopter. Look, it's kind of shaped like a whale. The helicopter has blades that go around the top like this, and it also has a rotor that goes around the tail. And they're at 90-degree angles to one another, and the complementary rotations of their 2 mechanical apparatuses help this machine to fly in a straight line through space. And when we have our energy centers in proper alignment at these 90-degree angles, what it does is helps us to fly through time on the intended or chosen intentionally timelines, flying through time. So this is the whole idea. When our chakras are properly aligned, and what I've got here in this drawing is everything. This is like ideal anatomy. This is like the most healthy, perfect person. You know, we've drawn an ideal person. But what happens a lot of the time is that some of these energy centers are slightly canted, or they're slightly at an angle. So if they're at an angle like this, or this one's a little bit at this angle, or this one's a little bit at this angle, it means that the energy cannot circulate without friction through these various energy centers. So the whole idea is, if we say this black line, even though I know it's a black line, is that primary ray of consciousness that comes from the stars, from the sun, comes from higher dimensional, less dense realms. And the first thing that it does is it enters into our crown chakra. And the crown is at the top of your head. It's where baby's fontanelle is. And that's where you, quote unquote, plug into the cosmos. That's where you get energy from. And it is also where you give energy to, because this is not a unidirectional journey. It is a multi-directional journey. We have energy coming out from, I don't know if you can see me because I'm on the whiteboard, but we come out from the convergence point, out from the center into the physical realm, coalesce as matter. And here we are living as a bunch of matter. This is my big giant black squiggle there. And then that's not the end of the journey. Then we need to also circulate back around to the higher dimensional, less dense realms. And what is that experience like? So first we'll go through the journey of energy coming from the source into you, from this higher dimensional source into the crown, and then from there it goes into your inner eye, or that's the brow chakra, and that's the eye of pure insight. So that is the place where we understand things and do not have to have them clothed with words. It is pure insight. I would say that that is our true mind as humans, as opposed to the yellow level at the solar plexus, which is the implanted mind. But I want to say, in terms of understanding that we have infections or pathogens in our chakras, or some of our chakras are out of alignment or not functioning absolutely correctly, this one also has some major problems. And it is the level of, when people are at the level of anthropomorphic seeing, but they haven't yet connected to the abstract, that's what these two viewpoints are. When you look through this eye or through this lens, you're interpreting the world through the system of interpretation known as humanity, known as the human experience. And when you get up to this level, that's the purple level, then you're at the level of abstraction, which is transcending this anthropocentric level. So it's like, instead of saying person A punched person B in the face and this was the result, it's particle A interacted with particle B and this was the change in trajectory. And they have very different experiences. When you describe those two things emotionally, we have different experiences, we have different emotional reactions to the abstract. There's a lot less personal interpretation on the level of the abstract. So when an energy impulse comes from the crown, it goes to insight, and that's where we understand it on a non-verbal level. And then it goes down to the throat chakra, where it is clothed with words. Then it goes to the heart, and the heart is like the central processing unit of this entire apparatus. Signals come from the top down, and then they also go from the bottom up. And everything has to go through the heart. That's what I mean, the central processing unit. And if the heart is askew, or if it is partially closed, if it is not fully open, and I'll play the little music over here, when you are moving through time at just the right rate, your heart is creating a tone of love. You're moving through time at exactly the right rate. 1 moment per moment. And that is literally what love is. So love is not the romantic ideal that we know at the orange level down here, where your tummy is, where your intestines are, where your reproductive organs are. That's a different feeling. That is the romantic love, or the affection, or the attraction, or even the possessive and jealous aspect of love. That's the sense of, like, mammalian stuff. You want to hug and be hugged. You want to, pet a pet that has nice soft fur, or have someone else pet your nice soft fur. Like, that is a different level of experience than the higher level of love. That is literally when you are moving through time at the right rate and you make that tone, you are making love to the cosmos. You are the loving, co-creative partner of the divine. And the divine is, I'm pointing to these paintings behind me right now, this whole system. And I find this to be a beautiful, empowering lesson. I know that I'm on this traumatized planet where everyone is super skeptical, and they're like, Aurora, like, the rainbow is a control system. I don't want to know about this. I'm like, I find it's like music. I find when I learned about music, it did not disempower me and make me a worse musician. It made me a better musician. I was like, now I understand how all of this stuff is structured together. Now I can make my songs even better. So the idea is, we emit love when we are moving through time at the right rate, we're not clinging to the past or grasping or striving or expecting things to happen in the future. And when that energy impulse goes through the clearinghouse of your heart at the level of green, it then finally reaches the solar plexus, and that's the level of human intellectual thought, and it's colored yellow. I should be making all these in the right colors, I'm sorry. The human intellectual level, I have called that many times the hacked human operating system. That is definitely one place where, if we're going to say there's pathogens in this system, there are pathogens in the system there. But to me, the answer is not to simply get rid of the human mind. Like, there are a lot of very beautiful people on this planet right now who don't have the human operating system, and we call them developmentally disabled, or mentally disabled, that they can't think and speak and process information in the same way that the majority of people do, or they are non-neurotypical people, and they're still very beautiful and valuable. Like, they're just musicians that are playing their own instrument in their own key, and they're not integrating with the music of anyone else. And the only problem with that is that you could have the most beautiful ideas and energy inside, but if you can't integrate with the collective operating system and language, then it's like you're a nonverbal person. You're everything stays inside. You don't have a way to interface with everything else that's out there. So look at me. I came here. I'm a galactic walk-in, right? I'm an abstraction. I came in 2001, and I had to download and access the hacked human operating system, including language, so that I could share these ideas with other people. Because if I didn't, I was just making lots of drawings and making lots of artwork and showing it to people. And I started to understand, like, okay, these concepts are not really getting across unless I actually verbalize them. I'm going to have to find some way to verbalize it. So I went through many years of effort at learning how to speak articulately about these things and, share them with language. So if I get a cold in my nose, I don't chop off my nose. We have collectively an infection in the human mind. But to me, the solution is not to chop off the human mind or amputate that level of our capacity. It's to heal it. Let's remove the pathogens from it. Let's heal this entire system. And so energy then, when energy reaches this level of human thought, the hacked human operating system, that's what most people define as having a thought. But that was a thought that came from all the way up here and circulated through all of these other levels of your being before, bing, 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 it actually got there and had a thought that you could consciously be aware of. And then when we have a thought, it gives us an emotional reaction. That's the next place that energy is traveling downward in this spiral, and it hits our emotions. I have a thought, whatever I'm thinking, my thought gives me emotions. And then the very next thing is the physical. The emotions put us into motion. And so there's a lot of hacking and distortion also at the level of orange. That's the level of romantic love. And I think we can definitely say that in this human realm right now, what is going on with romantic love and romantic partnership is highly distorted. There's all sorts of psychological games and unhealthy things that are played, and ownership and jealousy and possession. It is not like the love that is unconditional love at that level, which is pure acceptance and compassion. And there's the level of orange is also the level of mammalian emotions such as anger and disgust and grief. And I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with any of these emotions, but I'm perceiving that they are highly distorted and misapplied in this world, because anger is supposed to serve a purpose. Like, if someone does something to you that makes you angry, you push them away. It means you don't interact with them anymore. But I mean, there's a lot of people that are just experiencing endless anger. Like, anger should be a force that means, like, oh, I'm pushing away that stimulation and then going in a different direction and having a different experience, not just endless anger or endless sadness or endless grief. And the idea is that this orange level is a distortion of this green level. Like, if you take a regular music tape and you slow it down, it starts to sound very distorted and even a little bit ugly. That's what's going on down here with the level of orange emotions. And again, I do not promote the idea that everyone should get rid of their mammalian emotions. I don't think that we should all become emotionless automatons or like a Borg or some kind of, like, I'm not a transhumanist in any way. So the idea is this emotional level, intellectual level, and the level of pure insight up here, they all need to be healed. Just like if you get a cold, you've got boogers in your nose, you're coughing up stuff, you might have problems in your intestines too, you might have a headache too. You have many different parts of your body that are all affected by the same disease. And the disease that we're affected by is this hack that happened to our genes, or the distortion that happened to our genes about 10 or 20,000 years ago. So I'll go back to my face. I hope you can see while I was doing the gesturing on that too. So there's a journey of information that comes from the higher dimensional, less dense realms. That's like saying information comes from, I don't know if you can hear that note on my piano, the highest level of notes, and then goes down, down, down the scale until finally that information coalesces in the experience of our physical body. And that's the whole, so I also understand that for a lot of people, there's this sense of burdensomeness, like, oh, I'm stuck in the physical body because of some of the inherent limitations that happened due to the genetic squashing or the genetic distortion. And for me, the answer and the solution is flying rainbow lasagna. And we'll get into in level 2, wonderful ways of using this in order to rearrange the membrane of death. But the whole idea is, I say this many, many times, when I give information about how the energy systems of the energetic anatomy or non-physical anatomy are structured, this is not meant to be disempowering. This is not meant to say like, oh, you're fated to have this experience and there's nothing you can do about it. It's more like saying, learn music theory, not so that you can be an automaton and only play the notes that are presented to you, but so that you can learn how to be a good innovator, a jazz musician that comes up with new combinations. And that's what flying rainbow lasagna allows you to do. So I did the journey coming from the sun or from the source out to the physical realm, but now that's not the end of the journey. We then have the journey of impulses that come from the physical back to the sun. Let me go back and get another here. First, I'll just pick up this, because so I'm trying to do too many things at once. Let me get this prism picture. Okay. So Newton did this lovely experiment. Sir Isaac Newton, the physicist, and I go into that a little bit in the recorded lesson, that in the 1600s, the work of Newton was revolutionary and a huge step up from what had been going on, which was a lot of superstition. And Newton is the person that gave us this idea of what these 7 colors are like, and he did a lot of experiments with prisms. And one of the things that he did was he sent this light wave through a prism and it made a rainbow. And then he put a complementary prism over here, and all of the rainbows that went through it got refocused. This is a terrible drawing, but I'm sure you can understand. I'm trying to make it look like all of these light waves refocus, and then they come out this side as white light again. And that is the journey going in the opposite direction. So let me now pull up another one of those pictures of like the anatomy, the human with the rainbow anatomy around them. Okay, so if I pull up this one, oh, let me do this one instead. We'll do both of them. Here we go. So this is that same, I had that black and white drawing. This is the painting that finished up. It might be a little bit harder, but I think you can still see the figure in there. So now we're going to talk about the complementary journey of going from being out here in the physical realm, and red is the, let me move this thing. I can't actually draw properly. Wait. This, there we go, down here, this level of the physical realm, that is where we reside, or where our sense of identity comes from. And we are taking the impulses and the experiences of being here and then refining them and sending them back up, just like that second prism, back up to the sun. So what I'm trying to get across here is the idea that we are little tiny pieces of, or emanations of, the sun and the stars and the stellar network. We have this recipe, this color recipe of rainbow colors in our body for a reason, because that is the light that comes from our star. If I were to say, well, you know something, I don't like this recipe. The star gave me this recipe of how to make a cake, but I don't like orange. So I'm going to chop out the orange, but just still make the recipe anyway. And you're like, have you ever made a recipe with no eggs in the cake? Like, that's not going to work. It doesn't work. So I'm speaking to the idea of people who say that they have removed their chakras or unplugged in some way. Like, I'm trying to tell you that there is not an effective way to change the color recipe of who and what you are without making your whole entire cake fall down in the oven. Like, are you going to get rid of physical matter? I don't think that, if you got rid of physical matter, then you would just be a non-physical being, what we would call a supernatural being, like a ghost or an apparition or something like that. You would just be a pure spirit being. Let's say you have a physical body, but you don't have actual mammalian emotions. What would we call that? Are you an automaton? Are you a cyborg? Are you a reptile or some kind of, cold, unfeeling being? being, what would that be desirable? Is that something that you want? To my understanding, getting rid of your emotions would be like chopping off your nose because it's having a sinus infection. Like, that's not an effective thing to do. So the whole idea is we need to reclaim this anatomy. I use this analogy a lot too, just like in the Middle Ages, when women did not know about their reproductive cycle and they were not empowered in terms of expressing their sexuality. Women had babies all the time. They were pregnant their whole life, and they had a lot of babies that died, and they didn't have the ability to nourish them. And this is what humans are experiencing, but it's not babies. Humans are creating reality, because this is our reality creation machine. This is what we use to move through time and create possibilities and probabilities. I told you that the emanations from the portal known as the sun, it's not just light, it's possibilities and probabilities. And that is what we are here experiencing. And then what we're supposed to do is give a real-time broadcast back to the sun. We're supposed to take the experience of being in the physical realm and broadcast that through all of these energy centers, make it a finer and finer and finer, higher frequency broadcast until we can send it back to the sun. So just like a bat does echolocation, if this is a little bat, I'll just draw like there's a bat with some wings. And what the bat does is it sends out sonar, sound waves, and they say, here's an object. The sound waves bounce off of the object, and then they bounce back to the bat. And the bat is incredibly adept as a calculator, as a mathematician, and it can calculate the difference between what it sent out versus what it received. And it can say, oh, I can now understand that there's a little thing that's over there, like there's a little mosquito over there that I want to eat. The sun is doing exactly the same thing. Here's the sun, and the sun is sending out waves, but they're not sonar waves, they're light waves. And the light waves, if they didn't hit upon anything, would simply travel endlessly. This is infinity. The light waves would simply travel endlessly through space, but they don't travel endlessly through space if they hit something like our planet, or if they hit a plant on the planet. Here I'm drawing a little leaf. So they hit a plant, and then they get turned into a starch or a sugar in that plant, and they're solidified as matter. And then a animal eats the plant, or a human eats the plant, and the light becomes a part of you. Or the light enters into your retina and stimulates your retina and goes into your brain and becomes a neural impulse in your body. That light has been acted upon. And so what that means is, in the sun up here, the star up here that I'm highlighting in red, can do a calculation. Like, oh, I sent out all of this, nothing came back. I sent out all of this, nothing came back. But when I sent out this one over here, it turned into a leaf. And the plant actually broadcasted back to me the experience of being a leaf. And then an animal ate the plant and actually broadcasted back the experience of what it was like to eat it, and a human ate the animal. So let me go through an actual physical example of what this is like from a first-person experience as a human. So I used to have a beautiful apple tree at the end of my driveway when I lived in Northern California. And I used to think, like, this apple tree thinks all year long in conjunction, like here's a little tree and it makes apples, and it is in partnership with the sun. The sun is emitting light, and these are thoughts. These thoughts are the potentiality of an apple, and it's this partnership between the sun and the tree that makes the solidified thought form known as an apple. And then along comes me. I'm Aurora down here, and I get to get one of these beautiful apples, and I get to actually eat it. And when I actually eat it, I recognize that not only am I eating a solidified thought form, but that I can transmit back the tastes and the textures and the sensation and the nourishment back to the sun that all of these ideas and energy and nourishment came from. This is called love. Love, real love, like that tone of love is all about an equal giving and receiving. So when you are making love to the cosmos, you are given one moment per moment, and you reflect back one moment per moment. And whatever you are doing in that moment, whatever physical matter you are using in that moment, is what you are sending back or reflecting back. So it can be like, oh, look, I am using physical matter to drink water. And I'm mentally broadcasting back the experience of actually feeling what water feels like on my lips and going into my stomach and going into my tummy. Or I'm eating an apple. I am using the solidified light and eating that apple, and I'm going to broadcast back the mental experience of what it is like for feeling it on my taste buds, feeling it going down my throat, and feeling what it feels like to be digested, and to do things then with the caloric energy that I got from that apple. So here's the basics of what had happened. If this is an apple That's the stimulation in the physical realm. A physical piece of energy goes in my physical mouth, and then it goes in my intestines down here, my intestines. So that's this level of orange over here. I know I didn't change we'll just keep it simple. I'm red pen, but I'm highlighting the orange area of the energetic anatomy. And that means that I have a mammalian feeling about the food that I just ate. Literally, food creates mood. And this is why I don't tell people what to eat and what not to eat, or whether to be a vegetarian or a meat eater, but I will tell you to eat the food that had the best life, because beings that were raised in captivity will give the experience of being caged and imprisoned and limited and constrained as their level of feeling. That's what that feeling will be. If you eat a beautiful, something that wasn't raised in confinement and had a wonderful, expansive life, then you get to ingest that tone or that music or that feeling of freedom. So there's a definite conspiracy or intention to make humans eat lower quality food that was raised in captivity, so that you don't have food of freedom to draw upon. That's intentional. That's not by accident. So our food gives us our mood, our emotional mood. And then our emotional mood gives us our thoughts. That's at the intellectual level, the hacked human operating system. And then we move up to green. That's that clearinghouse. All of the signals have to go through green. And then it moves up to the level of the throat. And the level of the throat is where impulses are clothed with words, or where the clothing is removed and they're made into pure abstract impulses. So this energy going in this direction means that we are taking the energy impulse of the apple and we're taking away the verbal expression from it, because words don't actually fit through the tiny little portal that we have to fit energy through. Words are very bulky and cumbersome. It's like the wrapping around the actual good stuff inside. So you take off the wrapping of the words, and then it moves up to the level of pure insight, which is this level in our brow chakra right up here, but that's not the end of the journey. Then that thought that is pure insight. We're a refinery. We have refined out the gold from all of this ore that is in this entire system. The very last thing is going through the top of the head, the crown chakra, going up to the higher dimensional, less dense realm, going back to, this is me over here eating the apple. I'm sending that energy back to the sun that sent it to me. So look, the calcium in your bones, it doesn't come from this star that is presently radiating, but it comes from a star. All of the elements and atoms that we use to have physical matter and have a physical body come from stars. All of the neural energy and consciousness energy that we have to be aware, just your thoughts, come from the sun and the stars. And clearly all the food and nourishment that we have comes from the stars. So that is like the bat sending out echolocation and saying, I want to send out these impulses, and then I want to see what comes back. So in a perfect frictionless system, we would all be doing real-time broadcasts and sending back to the sun. Oh, hey, this is what I'm doing down here. What I'm doing, whatever. I'm sitting in my chair. I'm reading a book. I'm eating good food. And the sun would know exactly what each one of us is doing. That's the whole idea, that this is meant to be not like humans have this experience of being submerged in time, almost like you got crashed down into time and then cut off from the sun, cut off from the higher signal, cut off from the great composer that says, play on the beat, play on the beat. This is what that's not the way we're supposed to be experiencing being submerged in time. We're supposed to maintain that connection. That was the original intended format for our bodies. And it's the genetic squashing that made us lose the signal. And that's why everybody runs around bumping into each other, bumping into walls, and bumping into the membrane of death, because they can't actually see where they're going. So I'm telling you, I understand the frustration, and I understand why people feel limited and constrained in this world. And they're like, I don't like having a stuffed up nose. I'm just going to chop off my nose, and that way I won't have to deal with this stuffy nose of having a cold. But the answer is not to chop off your nose. It is to heal the hacked human operating system, and to heal the emotional outgrowths or repercussions or responses that come from having a hacked human operating system. So Patricia is asking, how do we heal the hack? Flying rainbow lasagna is the answer to heal the hack. So this shape, and I get into this in the later lessons of level 1, I think it's lesson 12. You can see the front of this shape and the back of this shape, when I hold it up to the camera in just the right way, make what looks like a double helix. And this shape is used as a placeholder. I'll do a drawing because a drawing's worth a million words. So this is DNA, here, DNA, 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 DNA. And this is the second little strand of DNA, 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 DNA. And this is where they split apart in order to be replicated by a little RNA replicator. And that's this. We've done this on a previous video. And so what this little RNA replicator does is it sends out kind of almost like a ticker tape of replication, you know, a copy of the same little strand. These are like zippers. So we've got little teeth on one side of the zipper and teeth on the other side of the zipper. And this is the strand that the RNA is making. And the whole point is when this is split apart into this, here, changing colors, into this Y-shaped format there, there's this empty space. And that empty space, if it is held together or stabilized by a shape called the flying rainbow lasagna, you can imagine from the top down that would look like the flying rainbow lasagna is like this, and here's the top. So we're looking at it from the top down with DNA going where my white pen is going around this side on one side and going underneath here on the other side. What we end up doing is we can now make new and interesting combinations of the little amino acids, the little teeth on the zippers, instead of just, these are the two zippers, and usually they have to match going across here, like this way. They have to match going across this way. When we do flying rainbow lasagna, what it means is that we can begin to start matching things up across this way. We can start to match things up across this way. It's no longer just a do-si-do where you have to partner up with the person who's directly across from you, even if you're bored with them, and even if the person who's the partner across from you means you have to exhibit a disease like cancer or diabetes or something that you don't want. You can start to have new and interesting combinations of DNA. So what that means is that if your DNA, it's like a phone book. Like the phone book is a kind of a random accumulation of letters and numbers and symbols, and it doesn't really tell a story. We could take anything. We could take the phone book or a manual for a car. If we had a pencil with an eraser, and I could erase out the things that I didn't want to be in there, and I could repeat and write in the things that I did want to be in there, then I could take any thing. I could take the phone book or a boring technical manual and I could turn it into a masterpiece. And this is the idea that our human genetic code, what we're starting with, that's just the raw materials or the starting point of what we can really do when we use a transformational technique like the flying rainbow lasagna to make our DNA do a new dance and be rearranged into a new format. And that is how we get past these hacks. So in the antediluvian society, who we were before we had consciousness invaders come in, that changed the functioning of our planet, the functioning of our magnetosphere. This is, you know, Earth's magnetic envelope. Everything on Earth's anatomy was changed, and we as little tiny inhabitants of Earth, we and our experience was changed, and we had our broadcast signals from who we are back to the sun not completely cut off, but diminished. And that is what really happened. So it's kind of like if the sun cares about us deeply, and we are like its children and its art project and its family members. And all of a sudden we stopped broadcasting back. And it's been a little while of the sun saying, what's going on down there on Earth? I don't know. I sent out all of these signals, and I'm not getting any signals back. I don't know what's going on down there. And so usually what happens is when we hit the membrane of death, just getting my little, sorry, I'm looking off camera. We get the little sculpture over here. We hit the membrane of death. So what happens right now, according to the genetic squashing, is humans are born. As they get the hacked human operating system installed over the first couple of years of their life, like age 1, 2, 3, 4, as you start to learn to talk and perceive time and integrate with the rest of human society, your connection to the higher dimensional, less dense realm is diminished, and human vitality diminishes. Like you're a little tiny child, you have tons of energy, your body heals really fast, you never need to sleep, you want to run around and play all the time. And then as that connection begins to diminish, people begin to lose vitality, and children become more lethargic until finally they become what's called growing up. This is what humans call growing up. It is not what's supposed to happen, but humans accept this. Like you become more and more lethargic until by the time you're 18 or 21, you probably need a cup of coffee just to be able to get out of bed. And then, oh my God, by the time you're 30, then you need 2 cups of coffee to get out of bed. It just gets worse and worse. You lose more and more vitality. That's not what we were supposed to experience having physical bodies. We were supposed to come into physicality and still maintain our connection and that unbroken feedback loop. We're supposed to be little tiny versions of the star that emanated us. And we're supposed to have our color recipe that is in complement or mirroring what the sun sends out. We are a refractor and a refinery, and we're refracting the light that is consciousness light that is given to us into these different levels of reality. And yes, there are profound problems with our anatomy, and that's what the concept of the flying rainbow lasagna is meant to heal. So no, I would not recommend that anybody try to get rid of their chakras. And some people are calling that they're saying that they are quote unquote unplugging. Like, I think it's a terrible idea to unplug. That's like saying you want to unplug from the source of cellular vitality. The sun and the sun and the consciousness emanator, that is where we get vitality from. So Patricia is asking, how do we implement the FRL? So first of all, if you're a new student, I go into this extensively. I did it in the first semester of 2017, and I have a couple of videos that are basically called, one is called How to Dance Like an FRL, and the other one is called How to Dance Like an FRL Across Time. So just like learning how to play the piano, the first thing that you learn is music theory. Like, what's a C? That's a C. And what does it look like on the musical staff? This is what it looks like on the musical staff. This is what I've been teaching in terms of what are the chakras, what are the colors, what are these associations, what are these shapes, and how does energy flow when it flows through these different shapes. So first, it is an intellectual exercise of just learning music theory. Then it is a tuning of your instrument, because your body is your instrument. So just like a guitar has different strings on it, you have to tune the DNA of your body so that you can play it correctly. And then once you have your body in tune, and what that means is, so your chakras are not canted at an angle or going all wobbly like this. They're nice and steady, just like I was saying, a helicopter that flies through physical space and is a nice steady flight. When your chakras or energy centers are well formed, they are steady as you move through time. That means you're not perturbed. If something else comes along and tries to perturb you, make you have turbulence, you don't actually experience that. You experience being steady and maintaining your own mental and emotional trajectory through time. And then the final, so it's learning music theory, tuning your instrument, and then the final thing is learning how to actually play. So I will go through it very briefly, that the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, it is a genetic dance. And this shape itself is the end result of energy moving across time. So this is like a composite image, just like if you took a composite image of my arm moving across the screen, it might look like I had 10,000 arms, but you understand it's a long exposure image. So this purple dot jumps up and down 8 times, and I'll count it out for you. We got 8 flanges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so we do the dance just like a dance, put down my pen, on the 8 count. So the first thing is, we've got our DNA, and your DNA on a subcellular level is like a sweater that is completely unfurled. That's called chromatin. Your tightly wound chromosomes have been unfurled, and they are now like a sweater that has been pulled out. None of the loops of the crochet are together, and your chromatin spends time doing a dance. It twists up, it untwists, it gets spliced, enzymes put it back together. It's dynamic, is what I'm trying to say. So this shape is the end result of a dynamic energy structure, and your DNA is constantly moving in this dynamic dance. So what you do is you apply through mental exercise, through imagination and intention, the same way that you do something like the Merkaba or something like that. It's an intention, and it's a visualization, and it's a meditation. And look, the only matter in this world that you really own and that you can really experiment with is your own physical body. Like, I do not actually own this necklace. I do not actually own this shirt. These are just objects that are on my body that I'm using right now. But the cells of my body and the actual matter of my body, that I own. And so think about how important and profound the food is that you eat, because your food becomes the matter of your actual body. This is the matter that you are allowed to experiment with or to perform with as a musician in this cosmic symphony. So the first thing is learning the basic music or basic melody or basic beat. So first it's an up-down motion. And before I get going on the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, the first thing I always do, just like, where's my little brush? Here's my little brush. I'm sorry, I'm ducking off camera. My little bench brush. Before I get going on a painting, I sweep any of the dust off of my canvas so that I have a nice clean canvas. So that is what I do when I do the Merkaba. I start off with a little sweeping. I'm creating a protective bubble, protective energy field, and getting rid of any outside influences. And the next thing I do is I encrypt my DNA, just like I encrypt my iPad. No one else can access my tablet unless they have my thumbprint. No one else is allowed to write things under my energetic signature or write my emails or post things online and pretend to be me. I encrypt it with my thumbprint. Same thing with my DNA, because what we're really doing here is painting reality with our mind. So I'm saying if this is my paintbrush of my mind, I want to paint with what I want to paint. I want to say, I want to paint something red or green or turquoise. I don't want to have someone else come along and say, oh, I know you intended to paint something red, but I'm going to turn it into something purple or black, because that is what's been happening for over 10,000 years, that humanity's innate capacity to imagine and to create as a divine creative, partner with the sun and the stellar network has been hijacked, because none of us would be creating things like babies born with brain cancer. If we all really had full control over the paintbrush of our minds, none of us would be creating undesirable things like that, and some of the iniquities and children that have to eat off of a garbage heap in order to stay alive. Like, we wouldn't make a world like that. So what we can say logically is that the raw materials of our imagination, like the dough that can be baked into the bread of reality, is being snatched away, hijacked, harvested away out of our control, and it is being misapplied. And that's what we're experiencing in terms of the physical realm and events that are not going in the direction that we want to. It's why we experience disease and eventual death. We can change that experience. We can reclaim ownership of our capacity to imagine. And that means encrypt your DNA. Make it so that when you are in this creative process, in this moment of expressing like cosmic lovemaking, you don't let anyone else come on in and influence you. You know what you want to paint on your canvas of reality. So first, clearing away the dust with the Merkaba, then creating an encryption, and you figure out your own personal way of encrypting. Like, I do mine my way, you do yours in whatever way works. And this is part of it. Like, you can tell I'm not an overlord, a taskmaster trying to control and own you. I'm in many ways saying, like, be your own musician. I'm not saying only play a C or only play a D flat. I'm saying play your own melodies, use your own instrumentation, use your own capacity. So the dance movements of Flying Rainbow Lasagna, it begins with an up, down, and what that means is your ordinarily toroidal donut-shaped energy field begins to vibrate, hold this correctly, begins to vibrate like this. That's the first thing. We're doing an up, down, and that makes Flying Rainbow Lasagna in this format. And then the next one I do is side, side. So let's do, now we're getting this moving side to side, side to side. Then the next one I do is in and out. So if I hold it, it's kind of awkward like this. Then we're moving in and out like this, making this shape. And then the very final thing I do is end over end. That's like an end over end, kind of like a twirling salt shaker tumbling around. I do one end over end like this, and then from the other four corners. So now I'll count it out for you. And I know this is like saying, the way you play Mozart is just by putting your fingertips on the piano keyboard and just moving them like this. Like, it's more complex than that, but these are the basics of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So that 7 beat is chopped up into 2. We've got 7, and then the bottom beat 8. And it is a mental exercise when you are able to keep all of those plates juggling in your head, keep all of those aspects of self. What you're basically doing is transcending the limitations of the hacked human operating system by giving your higher mind something that's a much more interesting task that uses all of your processing power. So when I'm doing this Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, and I put on wonderful music in order to do it, and I power it by doing sun gazing. First, I fill up my inner battery power and energy with eating the sun through here in order to get the energy to do that. and I put on wonderful, inspiring music to do it. And then I have a whole, I have a written description of how to do the flying rainbow lasagna dance. And then I also have videos about it. So I know that you might be just climbing on board, but I'm happy to reiterate. So it's not just an intellectual exercise, just like making music is not just an intellectual exercise. And when you get really good at music, when I'm really like, I'm like intermediate, I'm not a total like master. When I'm good at a particular part in the song, I don't have to think. I know exactly where my fingers need to go. I've transcended the verbalized mind. I've transcended the hacked human operating system. So this is what we are all trying to do on a genetic level, to bring our genetic dance to this level of being good at things. I'm not finding the right word, to this level of adeptness, so that we transcend the clunky, hacked operating system that is known as verbalized language. For me to slow my thoughts down, to make them actually go to my mouth, is a very big challenge. I was saying that a little bit before, like how I had to actually learn, like, how am I going to put these thoughts into actual physical words? It was a journey of many, many years to try to figure that out. Let me also just check the time. I should start checking out more on the Q&A. Let me scroll. I know I make squinty, scrolly faces. Let me go back and answer all the questions, because everyone also has wonderful, good insights. Okay, so wait, let me make sure I'm going back to the beginning. Okay, so this is on the Gina responding on the topic of chakras and being attacked through chakras. That a guy said that the cause of the chakras that entities could attach, and that they cannot attach without them. So that's like saying the rationale or the logic here is that, well, you know, if you have a nose and you have sinuses, then that's how come you can get a cold or the flu virus, and then you get, you know, blocked up nose. So clearly, if you get rid of your nose, then you can't get pathogens in your nose anymore. I mean, the logic there is flawless, right? Except the idea that you might actually want to use your nose for vital purposes in your life and not have to get rid of it, because, you know, yeah, you can get pathogens in any part of your body, and then you have to chop off that part of your body too. It's a losing proposition. I just got to drink a little bit of water. I would say a much more effective approach, instead of chopping off your nose or getting rid of a diseased body part, would be to heal that body part. And that's what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is all about. Like, I will not describe in excruciating detail all the challenges or limitations or constraints without offering an effective tool for transcendence. And this is what I use for my own journey, and this is what I offer to other people. Yeah, and what I'm really, and Chris is saying that it is the people that are getting rid of their chakras or whatever they're doing or whatever they're intending, it's like they're taking themselves out of the band, because these chakras, these are how we connect as individuals to the sun, to the stellar network, and to the rest of the cosmic symphony. And it's a beautiful symphony. It's a symphony of life. So also, well, let me just close this for a moment so that you can see my face a little bit better. I told you about that color recipe. When you're doing the rainbow, when you have chakras on your body, that's a color recipe. And let's say you want to get rid of your yellow hacked operating system chakra. That's wonderful. That's like saying you want to get rid of the eggs from your cake. You lost a vital ingredient from your cake, and then you try to assemble that, the batter is not going to hold together. It's not going to work. So I'm trying to say, I didn't invent the idea that we have these 7 layers of consciousness. And also, I should show you one more thing. We don't just have 7 layers of consciousness. That's a simplification. That's like if I were showing you your circulatory system and I just showed you the major blood vessels and not every single little capillary. Wait, I want to choose, I'm talking too much. I want to choose 2 things here so that you can really see them. I want you to see this, and there's this. Okay. So this is a glass piece that I did, and you can see that each one of these layers over here, they're usually nested together, but this, I'm showing them all unnested, just like the little Russian Ukrainian dolls. I've taken them all out of their nesting so that you can see what they look like better. But let me show you the next piece. Here, there we go. Here's a close-up of the inside of one of their. Inside of each chakra or energy center, you have 7 layers. So even though this is the red, I'm highlighting it in black, the red layer, it's your physical body. Inside of that, you also have orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And that's true of every single one of these energy centers. They all have, so you can see now inside in this, it's a very detailed painting. Inside of each layer, you have 7 layers. So you have 7 main chakras, and each one has 7 main layers. And then that's just like understanding the energy system that is used in acupuncture, there are major meridians and then there are lesser meridians. It's like saying you have your aorta that comes from your heart and all the way down to very fine capillaries that go all the way out to your fingertips or into your eyeballs. So I've been sharing a simplification in these structures, like, you know, when I share this image over here, when I share these pictures, that's not even all of the information. It's not, I haven't even drawn, everything that can possibly be, it's a simplification. So I had to go to more questions. Wait. I'm not skipping anyone. Yes, so people that are getting rid of their chakras, is like saying they're choosing to take strings off of their guitar. You can play the guitar that has ordinarily 6 strings with only 3 strings, but it means you're really limited. There's a lot of notes that you don't actually get to play, and there's a lot of songs that you wouldn't be able to play along with if you only had 3 strings on your guitar. So I would not encourage that. Joelle says, I actually did a meditation to remove my chakras because I was led to think they were implants, but now I see that that's not the case and it's a little more complicated than that, and she's agreeing with my perspective. So that's really good. And I would also say, like, a person, if you do a meditation to remove your chakras, so it's like if I meditate to remove my physical chakra, I'm still here in the physical. Like, clearly I have not removed the physical chakra. If you did that, you would not have physical matter to even experiment with anymore. So there are some serious questions when a person says, I am doing this and I am removing my chakras in this way. How can that even be done? Because I'm still seeing a person walking around. It's like saying, I got rid of my matter. I got rid of my matter. Oh, I'm so free. I got rid of my matter. Well, I still see a body that's made of matter. So what exactly happened? I don't know exactly what happened. So Chris is saying they link up with your DNA, which will also go 12 strand like it was originally. So yeah, this is my understanding, that through using a technique such as the flying rainbow lasagna, we can reweave our genetic dance and reclaim that connection to the sun and the stars and higher consciousness. And we can transcend the need for physical food. We can become pure light eaters. We can transcend our experience of time, of being stuck to the surface of time. That's what level 2 is going to be all about. And we can also achieve much greater degrees of longevity and vitality. We're not supposed to live, 100 years if you're lucky, and you get all bent over and, decrepit at the end of it. We're supposed to be able to live for a much, much longer time with these wonderful, physical, organic, multicellular vehicles. So Siraj is saying this is the place where we have the King Chamber in Pyramid of Giza. That's an interesting connection. I'm not exactly sure what that is in reference to, because I do know about the internal chambers in the Great Pyramid at Giza, and I do feel that it was a transformative place where people could physically go. But what I'm really understanding when I look at the ancient technology of what the Great Pyramid was, it emitted energy in the same way. In level 2, I'll talk about these Rodin coils, not energy in a wire. The idea that we have to connect our light bulb through a wire to the wall in order to get electrons is kind of barbaric and amazing. So they not only were able to power the entire physical structure with light bulbs that were non-polluting, but that also the emanations from the pyramid helped to transform consciousness and help to bring people into a greater levels of refinement of consciousness. Thank you so much, Charlotte. So Charlotte is expressing gratitude, and then she's also saying the idea of trashing your own birthday cake. That is the idea. If you are going to change the recipe of your physical body, is saying, like, somehow better than the sun that emanated you. It's like, your cosmic parent that made you, and you're going to get rid of flour from the recipe. Like, if you don't do some kind of a substitution, that cake is not going to rise. That is not going to work. So Siraj says, I wonder where's the prism in our body to separate light spectrum, or why one part only absorb only one skin color or sun spectrum. So our physical body, the prism of our physical body, it is not anything about our skin or our skin color or any kind of physical phenotype of what we look like. It's a consciousness maneuver. It's about our mind. It's about a ray of unity consciousness that is the totality, that everythingness that exists, that then when it comes into an individual such as you or I, it gets split up into these various rainbow colors that give us our experience of being an individual and having certain characteristics. So the characteristics of having human thought and mammalian emotions and a physical body, that's what this experience is. Because the truth is, spoiler alert, we are all pieces of the sun. We are all light beings. We're all pieces of light. But at this moment in our journey, we happen to be solidified light. We are light that has the privilege of going slower than the speed of light. And what we're doing as we're on this journey is now increasing our speed so that we are going back towards those higher dimensional, less dense realms. It's the second half of the journey. It's like first you spend a lot of effort being born, just coalescing into matter and getting a physical body. And then the next part of the journey is that we spend a lot of time and effort getting out of this level of density or slowed down matter, slowed down light into a level of less dense information and light that is moving at a faster rate. Okay, this is an interesting, talking about dairy, ahimsa milk is compassion to the cows and good energy when drunk. This is exactly right. So the whole idea of factory farming is putting those levels of terror and disrespect and, basically treating animals like objects, objectification, not recognizing consciousness and feelings in animals. All of that goes into the way that these types of factory farmed food products are being created. So yeah, whenever possible, if you can find, if you're going to ingest animals and animal products, to find ones made from animals that had a decent life, a decent quality of experience. I mean, even if we could have wild meat, like, venison and things like that, that would be ideal, because that those animals, what they basically did was they got to make their own choices and live in a way that is free until the moment that they died. And then, so that freedom and everything that they learned in freedom comes into you on a cellular level or on an energetic level. I know that's not necessarily practical for everyone to eat wild crafted foods and hunted meats. We don't live in that world. So yeah, see if you can find meats and animal products that are raised from ethical sources where animals had decent whatever. So Charlotte is saying she's been trying to envision the dance. So I will continue to share this as best as I possibly can, and I'll do some physical videos of what the dance looks like. But the way that hold on, let me go back to my face. The way that I do the dance is very much like the way that John Coltrane set up his band. So John Coltrane was a really brilliant jazz musician. He played the saxophone and he did tons of like, in order to do that, he had the drum keep the drum beat, and he had the bass keep the bass line, and he had the pianist keep some basic melody going. So he had these backing musicians that created like a foundation or a musical structure within which he could riff around and do all sorts of fun and innovative things that made the music very not boring to listen to, like very unpredictable. So that is how I approach this dance. First, I get things going on the basic 8-beat with the microbes and the molecular realm and the birds and the trees and the animals. Get everything around me, because like I say all the time, you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. We are all connected as musicians to this symphony of consciousness, the symphony of life. You've got 3 trillion microbes in your gut that help you digest your food. They get to dance along with you. You've got skin yeasts. You've got molecules, tiny little monoatomic crystals in your body. There's all sorts of things in the atmosphere. There's, fungi that grow on the surface of the garden ground. There's all of these different musicians. There's insects playing music around you. So the first thing that I do, like John Coltrane, is get the basic music going, integrate with the other musicians. And then once I get that momentum going, then I start to riff around. And what that means is I start to innovate. Well, if I don't like the idea that babies are being born with brain cancer in this time and place, maybe I want to innovate and play a new melody. Maybe I want to play some music that sounds different than that, and get as many other musicians to play along with me and play that new music. And the more that we play that new music, the more that we create this new reality. So once again, you start with your own physical body and your own expression or flight through time. And that's as you become more and more of a virtuoso, you then combine what you're doing with other virtuosos. You're like, hey, that organism over there is playing this wonderful note, and that guy over there is doing this, and I'm going to be over here doing this. And it's not just in this time and place. That's why I have that video of Dance Like a Flying Rainbow Lasagna across time. Your life is intertwined with many other lives that are non-local. They are from hundreds or millions of years ago, and they will exist in hundreds or millions of years. So the flying rainbow lasagna, this means you're not like a flat little ant stuck to the surface of time. You can fold time. You can interact directly with someone who will exist in millions of years, or who did exist millions of years ago. So then it becomes, you're not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool of this moment right now. It's not just that you're collaborating with the other musicians who exist in 2017, September 8th of 2017, you can jam with anyone who lived a long time ago or who will live and who doesn't even live yet. And then I have another teaching that's all about covalent bonds over time, that literally the molecular bonds. Let's get into this. I didn't even use my little, let me show you this. I hope I don't make my recording too long. So this is the whole idea of the singularity and making connections over time. If this is the fabric of space, time, and consciousness, and the singularity is this central convergence point here, there's only one singularity, and we have a singularity that's at the center of each one of our chakras or energy centers. We have a singularity at the center of our planet because our planet has a magnetosphere that is shaped just like this torus, and there's one at the center of the star, and there's one at the center of every atom and at the center of every molecule, because all of these stars and molecules and atoms all have this as their basic energy structure. So there is a singularity or doorway to the singularity at the center of all of these things. But that's not like saying there's a million singularities. There's only one of these. So how can we understand everybody's got singularities all over the place inside of them, but there's only one of them? So that is how I try to explain this. If this is the super stretchy fabric of space, time, and consciousness, and this is God's finger, and God's finger is starting to like poke into here and make a vortex, like we're stretching out that stretchy fabric. So it's now stretched out to this point over here. Well, guess what? I can then also stretch my pointy God finger through the fabric over here. And now I'm stretching these 2 points together. Oh, wait, I can do it again. Wait, I've got two stretchy singularities that fit together. Let's do another one. Oh, I'm poking my finger through another area of the fabric. I'm trying to do this properly on camera. And oh, that's also connecting to the singularity. And you can imagine this is like a visualization. We're doing this 10 million times, and I'll grab my little pen and draw it out for you. Your brain is stretching. You're doing yoga of the perception. You are wonderful. You get the pen up here. If this is the super stretchy fabric of time, space, and consciousness, and we're making these stretchy vortexes, here's another stretchy vortex, and here's another stretchy vortex, and they all stretch and connect to that same point. And that point is the singularity, and that point I use infinity as the symbol, and it's also zero. It is the 0th dimension. So that's the whole idea. So I'll change colors so that this is a little bit easier to see. Hey, this is one person's life, right? Connecting to the singularity. Hey, here's another guy's life. Here's a different guy's life connecting to the singularity. Hey, let me change a different color. Come on, change a different color. Here's a different guy's life connecting to the singularity. This is the whole idea, that we have all of these different seemingly divergent experiences as an individual. But what we're really recognizing is that all of our experiences all converge together at that singularity. And that is the value of this recipe, the recipe of you as an individual. So this is why I also celebrate individuality. I don't say to any of you that you must look, walk, and talk exactly like me. I say I can offer myself as a template. It's like if you're a music teacher and you could say, well, I learned how to play like this and I move my thumb like this and it makes this sound. That's how I do it. But I don't say you have to do it in that way, because everybody has their own unique genetic code. Everybody has their own unique physical molecular structure. You are your own musician. You have to play your own music. You can't copy anybody else's music. And you might have your own, like not deficits, but like little problems with the instrument. So, I've got some problems with the instrument that I have that I'm, dealing with the brain. So, and the neurology. So I'm figuring out how to play my instrument in spite of those difficulties. Other people might have a different, challenge or problem or whatever in their body. So that's the whole point. Everybody has to figure out their own particular way of doing this, but all of those journeys all converge. I'm making all of my fingers all converge on that same singularity. That's home. That's where we're going. That's the return journey. So coming out here into the physical realm, getting born, is a huge accomplishment, but it's only part of the journey. And then making the final loop and looping back around and returning to the stellar network is the complementary second part of the journey. I want to make sure I'm not missing out on any really insightful, good comments. Okay. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure if I understand this. Okay, so wait, this person is saying, am I referring to the simulated sun? I understand that right now we are facing a lot of, pardon my French, sky fuckery. Like there are a lot of things that are going on in the atmosphere and the stratosphere of Earth that are blocking our view of what is actually there, obscuring or distorting our view of what is actually there, and that a lot of these are technological apparatuses. However, the sun, the real natural sun that is a star, that is a portal of consciousness, continues to exist in the world. And even, it's like saying, if the sun is shining on you and someone puts an artificial light bulb in front of the sun, you know, like let's say you're a plant and you're trying to grow and someone puts a grow light over you, and there's also the natural sun. You know, you can take energy from the grow light and you can use that to create starches and carbohydrates. You can also choose to focus on the natural sun. So that is what I do with my consciousness. I focus on the natural sun. I focus on the stellar network. That's where I get my ideas from. It's where I get my ideas for doing these videos from. It's where I get my ideas for my artwork. It's where I get my vitality for my physical body. So I can do that non-locally. Even if someone puts a light bulb between me and the sun, I still know that I can connect directly to the real sun. Patricia asked about healing the hack, and we talked about the answer is flying rainbow lasagna, even though it's a journey to learn how to do the flying rainbow lasagna properly. Suraj, I'm not sure I understand this. You say, if a rat is placed in a distance from prism and sunlight to create the spectrum of 7 color, what do I feel will be the outcome of this experiment? I don't know. I mean, all animals have this system in their bodies, but not everybody has the hacked human operating system. So animals experience mind very differently. That level of yellow is very different in animals than it is in humans. But domesticated animals like cats and dogs and horses are starting to develop ways of integrating with the hacked human mind, so they have some distortion on that level. So that's my best answer. I'm not exactly sure if I'm answering it. Okay, so Patricia's also asking about things like diet and mental and emotional integration in order to do the FRL. So one of the big things, I mean, like I don't tell other people what to eat, but I will tell you, eat the highest quality, highest energy value food that you can possibly find. You know, like cardboard frozen pizzas, you're not going to get the energy that you need to FRL from eating stuff like that. You need to eat, like if you can't, if there's no ore to refine out, then you can't get the gold out of what you're eating. So it's really necessary to eat food, you know, preferably that has life force energy, that was grown organically, that is not genetically modified, and that has good mood and good emotional energy in it, so that you can refine that out and use that as part of your own journey. Okay, Jeannie has a question. She says, is about hurricanes. Is this a collapse of the timelines or a merging of the timelines? That's an excellent question. So I would really say, this is it. Even though it seems like there's a lot of unrest, there's a lot of perturbations that are going on, and a lot of people are afraid. This is like being afraid of death and being afraid of the end, being afraid of the end of the world or the end of your personal life. And many people are equating the two, like their own personal death and the death or destruction of society. And I am not seeing that as the necessary end result because of flying rainbow lasagna. That many people are afraid of a pole shift, north to south, south to north, thinking that that will cause crustal displacement or similar levels of catastrophe as what happened 10 or 20,000 years ago at the fall of Atlantis. And I'm telling you that we do not have to simply recreate the traumas of the past. We're actually here to have the corrective experience. So to me, the pole shift is not about north-south to south-north and concomitant catastrophes or death of the physical body. It's about inside to outside. That's what this flying rainbow lasagna really does. It connects the inside world where I'm putting my pen with the outside world where I'm now putting my pen. And when we do that, we recognize that our mental, emotional, inner world, spiritual world, then becomes painted like an artist paints with a paintbrush in the world around us. So if I'm in control of my paintbrush, I'm not going to paint a reality where babies are born with brain cancer. I'm going to paint a reality where babies are born healthy and people are born, exist in freedom and have good health and vitality. So the way I saw it since the experience of the eclipse on August 21st was like many cars on a multi-lane freeway, and everybody is diverging onto their exit. And I really felt after that day, like I spent a lot of time talking to what I would consider the remedial students, or like the beginner musicians, people that haven't really been practicing their instrument that much. And at this point, those beings have diverged. They've gone off on their exit. They're going to go to their life experience. If you need destruction, if you need that for your personal growth, you can have destruction. If you want to see a nuclear war, if you want to see tidal waves, or you want to see a lot of people dead or whatever, you can have that. That's that exit on the highway. But I'm on a different exit of the highway, where it's all about health of my physical body, health and vitality of my physical body, health and vitality of Earth. So we don't have to have this thing where it's like destruction is necessary for rebirth and renewal. We don't have to completely cut down the entire house in order to build a new house. I'm occupying the timeline where we're able to have social and economic stability while we build a new system in its place and dismantle the old system. So that's my best answer. I'm definitely perceiving the perturbations in terms of storms, but it's like this. Some people are on the timeline where they believe that it is possible to mentally affect the storms, the giant hurricanes, and mitigate them or steer them or change them. And some people think, oh, the storms are out of my control, or they're being controlled by malevolent beings and I can't do anything about it. And those two different approaches and viewpoints will make a person take different exits on the highway. So be mindful about which exit what reality do you want to experience? Hey, if you want to experience a Mad Max barbarian, violence fest where you have to fight to survive, you can have that. People can have that, but that's a different exit on the highway. I'm on the exit of the highway where we actually learn to work together. We have beautiful art, music, and culture, and where we actually have a transcendent experience. And I'll talk about that more in level 2. Okay, question from Suraj. Does the 7-day structure, is it dependent on 7 chakra energy? And does 1 day energy more or less? So actually the 7 days of the week actually comes from ancient Egypt. And then it came to us through paganism. That's why they're named after like the sun, the moon, the various different planets up there. And it's like an ancient vestigial trace of the way that we used to look at the world. Yeah, and Gina's saying about people removing their chakras. I think that removing them somehow makes them feel better emotionally. Maybe it is psychosomatic. I think that might be it. I think that a person is telling themselves a narrative structure that says, I have done something and now I feel better and more empowered. Whether or not that's truthful, I mean, it's certainly not something that we can look at with a physical camera or compare or anything like that. And it's all self-reportage. This is the world of pure freedom. It's why I'm saying I'm not telling other people what to do or anything. I'm just offering my experience as a template. Everybody gets to choose what they do. We are literally like little baby sea turtles trying to make it from where we hatched across the beach and get to the actual ocean. And I'm not going to tell anybody else like, hey, like you're moving in the wrong direction. You're not actually going towards the ocean. You're actually going towards all of the seagulls that want to eat you over there. Like they can go in that direction if they want to, but I'm like, I'm going to the ocean, and anybody else that wants to come with me, come with me. We're all swimming to the ocean. So, that is my approach to this. Okay. Oh, so Melissa is asking me, when did I walk in? What made me walk in? So just very briefly, I came in on October 8th of 2001, and the previous occupant had what was not only a psychic attack, but also an anoxic brain injury that caused a literal metabolic death of this body. And that I classify myself as a galactic abstraction. That I'm usually not wearing a face and 2 arms and 2 legs. I usually look a lot more like what these paintings are. That's why I make them. So it's been quite an adventure, and a lot of, had a lot of fish out of water experiences learning about having a physical body. But at this point, I've been here about 17 years, and I love my body, and I love Earth, and I love Earthlings, and I love the experience of being on this planet. It's like if you move to France, and at first you're like, well, I'm kind of an outsider, and I'm only an immigrant, and I'm not really. And then like you live there long enough, you're like, something. I have a house here. I have a garden here. I have friends here. I care about here. I care about this planet. I consider this my home. I consider this body my body, and I face all the same challenges that everybody here faces. So yeah, I'm not any kind of an outsider carpetbagger. I'm not here to take advantage of anyone or exploit anyone. It's like we're all in solidarity on this journey, and we're all making this soul migration together. So it is very much like the baby sea turtles. We can have strength in numbers because we're all trying to get to the ocean together, and we can help each other. We can inspire each other on the journey. Just don't go over where those guys are going. They're going to the sea turtle, to the seagulls. They're going to get eaten by the seagulls. Don't go over there. So Suraj has a question. Is the galaxy, Earth, human cell, and atom, are they a different singularity point, or all gate to one singularity? All different gates to one singularity. And that is a profound concept. Once you really understand and embody that concept, It means that everything is connected. We are connected instantaneously to the great supermassive black hole that is the galactic center. We don't have to wait for waves of consciousness to travel across linear space and time, you know, like sending out a radar wave or a light wave or something like that. That would take millions of years to reach us. We don't have to wait. We can connect directly through the singularity that is inside of us on every single cell and atomic level to every other being that is connected to the singularity. Okay. I'm looking at just reading some things. Someone's got to evacuate from, Gina has to evacuate from Florida. And you know something? So we are in a world that's like rolling dice. You know, all of the potentialities of the future are not completely set. So we don't even yet know, where is this hurricane going to make landfall? What's actually going to happen? What is your personal experience going to be? Flying rainbow lasagna has everything to do with rearranging your DNA. It's not just rearranging the physical protein structures of your body. It's rearranging your experience of time. So you can flying rainbow lasagna your DNA and find yourself on a different timeline, where now the storm might be heading in a different direction, or you might have a different experience of finding gas or of evacuating or finding shelter. So yeah, and Charlotte's also saying she's had an experience of personally affecting the weather. Absolutely. We as individuals can affect the weather, and when we collectively get together as sea turtles trying to make it to the ocean of consciousness, we can be incredibly powerful. So I've been seeing some meditations that people are doing in order to try to mitigate, reduce, or redirect the storm. I totally endorse that. That's like saying we want to play music together. We're musicians, we're practicing, and we're trying to get together the band, and we're trying to play a good song in reality. I endorse that wholeheartedly. And this is also funny. Sirdar is saying that that they are 34 years old, but they feel 34 billion years old. I think a lot of people can relate to that sense, because we've been doing all of these iterations. It's not just the question of coming here into the physical and having the experience and then returning back to the thing that emanated us. It's like, oh boy, we've been doing a lot of emanations. It can be very, very tiring. And so I understand that when people have that sense of, oh, like burdensomeness, like, oh, I have to be alive. Oh, I have to eat food. Oh, I have to use the toilet. I understand all of those feelings. And I'll tell you, having a physical body is a huge privilege, not to just, toss it because it's a bit inconvenient, and to use tools like the flying rainbow lasagna to transcend the constraints and limitations. It makes reality more and more fun the more stuff that we do. So this recording is getting long. Let me end the recording for level 1. Let me duck off camera and do this. Thank you so much to everyone who tunes in and who's been watching and participating, and for your wonderful comments. Thank you. I'm just tuning up for a moment here.